everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Brittany, an American who moved to the UK a while ago, and today we're diving into some of the very British things that I've completely fallen in love with as an American. Now, moving countries always comes with culture shock, of course, but it also comes with these tiny joys and discoveries that make you go, oh, this is so British, I love it. So grab a cuppa, maybe a cheeky biscuit, and let's talk about the 10 British things I genuinely love as an American living in the UK, from chocolate and slang to pubs and architecture. Let's get into it. So let's start with something I have a serious weakness for: Cadbury chocolate. I grew up with Hershey's, but the first time I tried Cadbury dairy milk, I actually stopped mid-bite and was like, wait, why does this taste so much better? It's creamier, it's smoother, and it just tastes more real. There's this rich, almost velvety quality that makes Hershey's chocolate taste kind of dusty in comparison, no offense. And of course, there are other higher quality types of chocolate in both the US and the UK, but I'm just comparing like the basic everyday chocolate that every kid just kind of typically eats. And Cadbury has so much variety too. Flake bars, crunchies, Wispa, buttons. It's like a whole world of chocolate I didn't know existed. Whereas Hershey's is pretty much just plain Hershey's chocolate bars or Hershey's Kisses, which for those of you who don't know are just plain chocolate, but they're in the shape of like a teardrop. So not a whole lot of variety there. Probably because we do have so many other candy companies like M&M's, Snickers, Milky Ways, Kit Kats, and just so many others. So they don't really want to do too much. But I do love that Cadbury isn't just chocolate here. It's a part of British life, and I am absolutely here for it. Next up, one of the UK's greatest modern inventions, the meal deal. As an American, I didn't know convenience store food could be this good and affordable. You walk into any Tesco, Sainsbury's, whatever, pick a fancy chicken sandwich, packet of crisps, and maybe a smoothie, and all of that is for under £5, which is just about $7 US. And in the US, that would barely get you a coffee, but here you're walking out with a full balanced lunch, a drink, which could be an iced coffee if you even wanted it to, protein shake, whatever it may be, a main, which is like sushi, wraps, pasta salads, even vegan options, and a side like crisps or chips like we call them in the States, fruits, veggies, hummus cups, protein bars, and just so much more. The best part is how it just has become a part of everyone's everyday life here. You'll see business people, students, construction workers, everyone's just got their meal deal around lunchtime. The humble British meal deal might just be the country's most underrated national treasure. Next up, we have Sunday roasts. Every Sunday in Britain feels like a warm hug because that's Sunday roast day. I had no idea what a big deal it was until I experienced one myself. Roasted meat, crispy potatoes, carrots, peas, and Yorkshire puddings, which, by the way, are not desserts like we think in the States. They're just these magical golden little kind of cups of joy that purely exist to hold gravy, almost like an American style funnel cake, but it's savory, not sweet. And the gravy, oh my gosh, it's so rich, it's so satisfying, it's comfort food perfection. What I love most though is the ritual of it. Families and friends just gathering in pubs, taking a slow afternoon to eat and chat. There's something just so cozy and grounding about it. In the States, Sundays are for errands and getting things ready for the week ahead of you, but in the UK, it feels like it's more so for slowing down, for connecting over roast potatoes and gravy, and honestly, I do think that's a tradition that we should import. Now, you can't talk about British food without talking about fish and chips, especially by the seaside. It's not just a meal, it's an experience. You unwrap that warm paper parcel, the sea breeze is hitting your face, and the smell of salt and vinegar takes over. The chips, or fries as we call them in the States, are thick, they're fluffy, just perfect for soaking up all that tangy vinegar, which some Americans might find odd because most people in the States would dip fries in ketchup, but in general, the most common fry dipping sauce in the UK, or kind of all over Europe, really is mayonnaise. But when it comes to fish and chip plates specifically, people love to pour vinegar on their fries here as their dipping sauce, and the fish is crispy, it's golden, it's flaky, and somehow it tastes better when it's eaten out of the paper and there's seagulls screaming overhead. I'll never forget when Nick and I first moved to the UK and we were living in Brighton, just sitting on a bench, you know, staring at the sea, rain pouring down on us as we shared fish and chips, and we just kind of laughed about the weather. It felt so British. It's not fancy, but it's real, and it connects everyone to this shared coastal memory. In the US, we don't really have a food that carries that kind of heart, in my opinion, but here, fish and chips is a national identity on a plate. Now let's talk about the pub, the beating heart of British social life. I thought pubs were just, you know, bars with a different name, but they're just so much more than that. You walk into a good one and you instantly feel like you're at home. Wooden beams, fireplace, laughter, maybe even a dog asleep under a table. Pubs are where life happens in the UK. Birthdays, football matches, first dates, Sunday lunches, all in one place. I love that it's social without being loud or chaotic. You can chat, read, or just sip a pint quietly by yourself if you want to. I learned from a few comments in some recent videos that the word pub actually comes from public house, which I think perfectly sums up what makes them special. Historically, these were literally houses open to the public, a place where anyone in the community could gather, eat, drink, socialize. That's why pubs are just so deeply woven into British neighborhoods. They were never really meant to be just bars. Like, they were meant to be extensions of people's homes where warmth, conversation, and community naturally came together. Now let's talk about the history and the architecture. One of the first things that made me fall in love with the UK was how old everything is in the most magical way. I'll be walking down a random street in London or Oxford and realize the building beside me has been there for over 500 years. In America, something from the 1800s is ancient, but here that's kind of modern. You've got castles, cathedrals, cobblestone alleyways that look straight out of a movie. Even regular pubs sometimes have plaques that say established in 1586, and I'm like, that's before my country even existed. What's even cooler is how seamlessly the old blends with the new. Skyscrapers next to Tudor houses, modern art galleries, or food markets inside converted churches. It's history that you can live in, not just visit. Every city feels like a story being told. That sense of continuity gives UK this quiet, timeless beauty that I'll never get tired of. Now let's talk about British slang, which is a whole new language for us Americans, and I love it. When I first moved here, I understand the words, but not the meaning, and I am lucky that I did grow up with a British dad because it did help a lot. But still, like, fancy a cuppa? It sounds romantic, right? But no, it's just an offer for tea. Cheeky is maybe my favorite. It can mean like bold, funny, slightly naughty, depending on the situation. And then there's sordid. That one word means everything's under control. Americans would say I'll handle it, but Brits just go sordid. It's perfect. Even brilliant is used for basically everything, from actually brilliant ideas to just mildly good ones. Learning it makes you feel like you've unlocked a secret level of British life. And my favorite sentence so far has been fancy a cheeky Nando's? Iconic. 10 out of 10. Would absolutely go. To kind of piggyback off the last point of British slang, let's talk about British humor. British humor deserves its own masterclass. It's dry, it's subtle, and it's full of irony, which for Americans like me takes a little bit of adjusting. Even like I said, I grew up with a British dad, but once you get it, it's gold. And Brits can say something completely absurd with a straight face, and you'll only realize it was a joke a few seconds later. What I really admire is the self-deprecation. Brits can roast themselves better than anyone else, and it's done with such charm. No ego, just shared laughter about life being just a little bit ridiculous. Even awkward moments become hilarious because someone always finds the perfect one-liner. So if you are an American moving here, just know you won't really see the loud, outrageous, like in-your-face type comedy that we're used to back in the States. You'll be introduced to a high-level wit, and it is amazing. Now let's talk about British accents. The UK might be small, but wow, the accents are wildly diverse. In America, we definitely have diverse accents, comparing people in Boston or New York to the deep South or even a California accent like I have. But because the country is so much bigger, it's not as drastic of a change within close proximity. Like, you can just drive for hours and hours without hearing much of a difference. But in the UK, you drive 20 minutes and it's a completely new accent. You've got posh London accents, lyrical Welsh ones, and the joyful chaos of a Glaswegian accent. Some are easier to understand than others, at least for an American who's still figuring it out. For me, the most difficult one by far is a Liverpool accent, and it's actually super funny because my former boss was originally from Liverpool, but he's been living in London for 20 years, and everyone at work would say, "Really? You're from Liverpool? You've completely dropped your Liverpool accent. You sound so clear." And I would be so confused because it was so difficult for me to understand him. And then I went to Liverpool and I was like, wow, okay, I get what they're saying, because I couldn't understand anything that anyone was saying in Liverpool. But overall, I do love how proud people are of their accents, and the longer you live here and start to recognize the different ones, it's endlessly fascinating. And finally, let's talk about British traditions, because this country knows how to celebrate the seasons, and I'd say this is even more exciting for me as a Californian than maybe someone moving here from New York or somewhere else in the States that actually has, 4 distinct seasons, because in LA, it's sunny and 75 pretty much year round. I've never really experienced seasons before I moved here. So moving to a place like the UK where I not only get to experience seasons with the weather, but also celebrate them in such cool ways is really awesome. We have bonfire night in November, which is filled with fireworks, toffee apples, and history lessons all in one. It has a slightly dark origin story, but an amazing night nonetheless. Then comes Christmas, which has the Christmas markets, obviously super magical, twinkling lights, mulled wines, handmade gifts, festive music. It feels like stepping into a snow globe. Then we have some unique ones like Pancake Day in February, which is just pure joy. Imagine an entire day dedicated to flipping pancakes and eating them with lemon and sugar. It's beautiful. So there you have it, 10 British things I absolutely love as an American living in the UK. Honestly, moving here has given me a new appreciation for all of the little things, from how people queue politely to how everyone just kind of seems to love their cup of tea. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more adventures as I live in the UK as an American, and drop a comment telling me your favorite British thing, whether you are from the UK or you're not. Now let's take a look at why I left the US and moved to the UK in the first place.